Miami, palm trees, beaches, and sunshine. But for hip-hop, it's been the backdrop for some of the darkest tragedies in Gen Z rap. From breakout stars with platinum hits to underground legends just waiting for their big moment. Too many young rappers from this generation have had their lives cut short right here in Miami. And what's even crazier, some of these names you already know, while others you might never have heard of, but their stories all share the same haunting theme: fame, violence, and lives gone way too soon. Let's break down the 8 Gen Z rappers who tragically died in Miami. And trust me, some of these stories will shock you. We start with the one name that shook the world, XXXTentacion. At just 20 years old, he was already one of the most streamed artists alive. With tracks like Sad and Jocelyn Flores, he became the voice of a generation. Raw, emotional, and unapologetic. But in June 2018, while shopping for a motorcycle in Deerfield Beach near Miami, X was ambushed in broad daylight. 4 men robbed him, shot him, and fled. Fans around the globe went into mourning, and candlelight vigils turned into viral movements. His death wasn't just a loss for Miami, it was a gut punch for the entire hip-hop world. But X wasn't the only one taken too soon in Florida's rap scene. Just months later, more tragedy struck close to home.
17. That's how young YNW Juvie was when his life ended. He was part of the YNW collective alongside YNW Melly, and people saw him as the next big Florida wave. In 2018, Juvie was shot and killed in Miramar, just outside of Miami. His death was tied to the infamous double murder case that later landed Melly behind bars. The craziest part? Juvie barely had the chance to show the world his talent. His story is one of the most heartbreaking because he was literally just a kid with a dream, and Miami's streets didn't give him the time to grow. And he wasn't alone that night. Another YNW brother also lost his life.
YNW Sack Chaser, only 19 years old, was killed in the same tragic shooting that took Juvie's life. While Juvie had the energy of a rising star, Sack Chaser brought the grit. He had already dropped tracks that made people believe he could be the one to carry the YNW brand forward. But his life was cut short before that momentum could even build. Fans still replay his verses, wondering what could have been. The YNW story is already full of controversy, but for Miami rap, these 2 deaths left a permanent scar. And if that wasn't enough, Miami kept losing more of its young voices in the years that followed.
If you were tapped into the Florida underground scene, you know Wiz the Wizard, a close associate of Kodak Black. Wiz had that gritty Florida flow mixed with the sharp storytelling style. In 2021, his body was found outside a Hollandale Beach home, and the details of his death were wrapped in mystery. He had just begun to build his catalog, and people believed he was on the verge of breaking nationally. Kodak himself even mourned him publicly. For Miami's rap community, this loss was another reminder of how dangerous the streets can be for artists trying to make it out. And unfortunately, Wiz wasn't the first Miami native to fall victim to that cycle.
Miami's streets raised G-Money, but they also took him away. Known for his drill-style energy and raw lyrics, G-Money was steadily gaining respect in Miami's rap scene. In 2017, he was shot and killed in his hometown. What hurt most was how young he still was, just 22. He had the city behind him, and like so many others, was finally seeing the fruits of his grind before it all came crashing down. His death was a local tragedy, showing how even rising stars with momentum could still get caught up in the dangers around them. And sadly, the cycle of young rappers losing their lives didn't slow down.
Another name for Miami's underground, Straight Drop was one of those rappers who used YouTube and SoundCloud to slowly build a buzz. His visuals were gritty, his lyrics honest, and he was connecting with a Gen Z audience that wanted authenticity. But before he could fully step into the spotlight, he was killed in a shooting in Miami. For his fans, it felt like another dream interrupted, another reminder of how fragile life is for rappers coming up in the city. And sometimes, the loss isn't just about one artist. It's about a whole movement losing its momentum.
Technically from West Palm Beach, but tied deeply into Miami's rap circuit, Jay Osama was only 22 when he was shot and killed in 2019. He stood out because of his vulnerability in his lyrics. J.O. wasn't afraid to rap about the pain, the struggle, and the trauma of growing up in Florida. Fans called him one of the realest young voices out of the state, but like too many others, his career was cut short before the industry could fully recognize him. And finally, we end with one of Miami's youngest underground voices lost to violence. Not the most famous on this list, but definitely part of Miami's Gen Z wave. Lil Fat the Juice was a local rapper who embodied the grind. His music floated across SoundCloud and the Miami party scene. Tragically, his life ended in a city shooting. For many up-and-coming Miami rappers, his story is a symbol that no matter how talented or ambitious you are, the city's streets can still swallow dreams whole. From XXXTentacion's global stardom to Lil Fat the Juice's underground grind, Miami has seen way too many young rappers taken before their time. These weren't just artists, they were sons, brothers, and friends whose lives were stolen by violence. For Gen Z rap fans, these losses hit harder because they remind us of how fragile life is when success and danger collide. If anything, their stories should push us to protect the next wave coming up, so their voices don't end the same way.